Hello. Yo. Tell me what I want, what I really, really want. Oh, thumbnails are amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's getting banned from everything. I'm left to do, my artwork is now been confined to the snapshot before the YouTube stream. So I do what I can. Ian, Sterling. A different notification popped up. Oh, really? Did it say, warning, bigot, racist, homophobic, science denier? Polaris challenge. Yeah, it's hilarious. The hilarious challenge. Man, that guy, I just followed it. Like, I watched some of his stuff. He is a volatile human being. But he's still a human being. And are you there? Where is Sean? Where's Sean Hawking? Take the Polaris challenge. Yeah, the more I looked into it, I'm like, that's not a challenge, dude. You're Polaris challenged. Bruh. Take the Polaris challenge, you chicken shit. Bruh. It's all nonsense, guys. What is the Polaris challenge? Where there's this guy who's clearly in his last leg of life, challenging people to do the Polaris challenge, which is to take the assumed angles from Polaris or to the sun, zenith, and what is it called? Solar altitude angles. And he's like, make them work on something other than a sphere. And you're like, well, no, you're assuming, first of all, that you're getting accurate angles. Tell me, Sean. Tell me. How are you going to get an accurate measurement of an angle to Polaris in your model that puts Polaris at 323 light years away? Have you ever shot a gun? Have you ever shot a pistol where you aim it and you're like, I'm definitely aiming at the bullseye. Definitely. I mean, that's only 7 feet away. But you're going to aim your little aimer with your eyeball and you're going to point it at a thing that you don't even know what it is, let alone how far away it is. But let's say, assume you're right, that it's 323 light years away, which you couldn't possibly know anyway. But let's just say, fine. For the sake of agreeing with made-up bullshit by astrophysicists. There's no way you could know you were actually pointing at that star. But I'm holding the thing, and I got a little crossbow, and the light is on the cross. No. Do you understand how angles work, and how even if you're 1/1000th degree off, by the time your line gets to something 323 light years away, you could be miles, hundreds of miles off. Hundreds. So why don't you just calm down, Sean? Well, you replace a lot of argument with name calling, which is decent rhetoric with that broken voice of yours, but you can't replace an argument with just name calling. You could add name calling. I'm not against that. I mean, you look like, I'll happily say, you look like Gandalf in his like 3rd round of rehab. He's like swears it's going to work this time. Also, by your calculations and by your assumed radius value that you didn't measure yourself, you old Gandalf heroin junkie, that puts Polaris at 5,369 miles away, not 323 light years, whatever the fuck that is. Yeah, dump buckets of gravy. I want everyone to do the gravity Polaris challenge, where you dump an imaginary bucket of gravity on your head. Do the Polaris challenge, you chicken shit. Sean Hawking, yeah. So much snark. Yeah, he's not, I mean, he's not very just happy, you know. And be it, I have my own, you know, rage that comes up. But, you know, he's just not. Just an old grumpster. A wizard measures angles precisely how he wants to. Exactly. It's silly. Sesame Street teaches you how to use your imagination. That's true. That whole use your imagination thing is starting to really show up, especially with kids. You're like, oh, believe in yourself and believe in your own imagination and make the world how you want it. And all these, like, you know, basically you're Harry Potter. Everyone's Harry Potter. Everyone's Harry Potter. Use your wand. Mob said it's probably a thing where they dump buckets of gravity. Yeah. That's the ice bucket challenge. Demon Hunter, I like your name, by the way, Demon Hunter. Getting paid to drive and listen to Jim Bob for the rest of my shift. Have some gravel. Thank you. Appreciate that. Have a safe ride. I hope you're carrying. Some people are a little nutty these days. By the way, depending on what you're using, I heard that Lyft is now making a big stand against the Texas law that says you can't murder your baby. And it's saying women deserve transportation access, you know. So they're doing a little virtue waving, and they want to make sure that young women across the country, and specifically in Texas, have access to a ride to their baby murder, you know, with a little pink mustache. Ride a pink mustache to your baby murder. I mean, how sick and inverted is that? What up, Jim Bob? Sean Hawking impression has me dying. I know. It's not, I mean, he's like an old stretched out Alex Jones. It's like Alex Jones got into a Gandalf costume, did a bunch of heroin, smoked a lot of cigarettes, demolished his lungs, and then got stretched out on one of those like torture devices. Poor guy. I don't hate you, Sean. Your emotion and your anger and your lashing and all your claws, your little claws you have, are not substitutes for arguments. And you're wondering, like, you know, the rest of the scientific community doesn't promote my stuff. Yeah, because you sit there and curse and call people horrible names. Like, mostly. Like, it's fine. Use it like pepper. That's my invitation to you. Use your insults sparingly so that they mean something, and they're not used every single sentence. You're a grown man. You're like 89. You're acting like a 7-year-old who just learned all his new curse words. Use them sparingly. Then people will like, oh yeah, I'll get that guy on my show. Oh, I'd like to have him on. They don't want, you know, Gandalf going through a withdrawal and reading a book of curse words. Okay? Take the Polaris challenge, chicken shit. As he takes another hit of some unknown smoky substance. Dude, get your shit together. Get it together. Anyway, your R value is presupposed. It's not known. So, and you even admitted it. You said, well, we don't need the R, you dipshit. We don't need the R value to take an angle. And then you said in the same exact video, well, yeah, we need to enter the R value. That's what proves it's this and not that. Assumed. Assumption. Don't take crack challenge. What would Jordan Peterson have to say about Chill Sean? Well, like most things, you know, I don't approach by analyzing the person. I analyze the archetype or the symbolic gesture that they are in time and space, you know? It's like, are they a clown? And is it permissible? Are they demonic? Are they reprehensible? You know? It's like, you know, these debates are important in general. But I'm not the one to decide which particulars should be argued and shouldn't. I'm of the mind that anyone could argue anything for that matter, so long as they find someone to refute it or not. You could go on in the woods, you know, that famous wilderness forest in Japan, you know, where people hang themselves. It's like, fuck. Here he is. Take the Polaris challenge. I don't need to take the challenge. Challenged? I just demolished your challenge. Your rationality is prove your cowardice. Yeah, you just gotta have insults. That's all you got. You got insults and coughing. Coughing, insults. Lay off that smoke stuff, dude. Your lungs need reparation, okay? I wish your body well. I wish your spirit well. Keep talking. Yeah, you don't have anything to say. Tell me, Sean Hawking, how do you get an accurate angle to something 323 light years away? Have you ever shot a gun? You think you pointing a gun at a street lamp from 50 yards away, 6 feet away, you think your eye angling, you know, lining that up is accurate? What? Take the challenge of, how about take this challenge? Before you offer challenges about all of that, take the challenge of verifying the angle that you're taking. How do you do that? You can't. It's like you may be looking at something, yes. You may be pointing at something, yes. But that's not to say the end of your finger is actually lined up, regardless of what it looks like, you know? No, I have challenged you that you're too cowardly to take. What? You run away? What? Run away from what? I looked at your challenge. If you start a challenge with a bunch of assumptions that you didn't even verify, it's not a challenge. How about the challenge is challenge all the assumptions I made by making the challenge? That's a little more honest from you. Challenge, hey, do this challenge that I made. And you're like, yeah, but based on what assumptions? You're like, argue this thing instead of the presuppositions. I mean, you're so focused and so locked in that you don't even see there's a whole layer of assumptions that you have that are unverified that you need to even start the challenge. For instance, I challenge you to verify the angle to Polaris. How do you verify an angle to an object that's 323 light years away, Sean? How do you verify that angle? Polaris doesn't move, it's stationary? It is? How do you know? How do you verify that? He broke down your challenge's logical fallacies in 5 minutes. Yeah. What is the Polaris challenge? I Googled it and it's a bike ride. Just find him. Find Sean Hawkins. And it's in one of his videos. Speaking of shooting a gun, long distance snipers take rotation of the earth. Okay. Right. Snipers every time they're like, okay, are we pointing north or south? East or west? Because we got to change. No. That whole entire debacle is retarded. You couldn't even know if that was the variable in place because there are so many other variables. For instance, how do you know if you're shooting that far away? How do you know the wind where you are is the same as the wind of where the bullet will be? You don't. I mean, you just take these dumbass experiments that are non-experiments, by the way. That's another retarded thing you say. You think determining what something is, by the way, is an experiment. That's science to you. Determining the shape of something like an apple is not actually science, dude. That's not the scientific method. Weirdo. Oh, parroting the ignorant coward Owen Benjamin LOL. Hey, if someone's saying the truth, then it doesn't matter who's saying it. I mean, Hitler could have said something true. If I repeated it, would you be like, oh, are you parroting someone, Sean? Are you parroting it? Did you invent all the language that you're using right now and all of the structured sentences and all the claims? Is that an argument? Oh, Sean, you're just parroting someone else's claims that have the same contentions. I mean, this is how low IQ you are. It's pathetic. The sniper accounted for the spin but it changes. So like, when they're in war and they're facing another direction where the spin is a little bit different effect on the bullet, they definitely account for that. Okay. It's so retarded. Yeah, as if Owen's the first person to say all of these things. It's like we're all learning all of these lies. It's like if you uncover something that's inaccurate or inconsistent, suddenly you're parroting the last person who uncovered it. This is how stupid these people are. Sean's allergic to grass. He can't play outside. You're parroting your Globe Earth sniper. I mean, it's also stupid. Like they would say, well, no, the difference, the margin of error is so minuscule, but they still have to account for it. It's like, oh, really? By how much? It's like, son, you're a great shot, but you keep forgetting to account for the Earth's rotation. So let me get this straight. When you shoot a bullet, you have to account for the Earth rotating under a bullet that's traveling that fast, right? But you don't have to account for the rotation of the Earth when you're flying a plane? Are you really that retarded? You have to account for the bullet. I mean, the speed of the bullet. I mean, this is insane. We have to account for it. It's traveling at like, insane speeds and distances, but we have to account for the rotation of the Earth that's clearly moving under the bullet, but we don't have to when you do everything else in the air. What are you talking about? So stupid. I can't believe that people actually don't see the problem with that. Is that a bullet? Oh, do we have to account for the spin of the Earth? We're flying a Concorde jet. It's going really fast from Paris to New York. Oh, no, don't worry about it. What about, okay, I'm going to be a sniper. Yeah, well, you better account for the spin of the Earth. Okay, Sean, at what speed of an object is it required to account for the spin of the Earth in its trajectory? Is there a known speed? Is it 800 miles per hour? Is it when you're traveling over 1,000? What is it? Well, in his defense, the plane has its own propulsion. Well, are you saying the Earth travels, that a field goal kicker has to account for the spin of the Earth? I mean, it doesn't matter if it has its own propulsion. Here's why. If something leaving the Earth, its surface, is moving, and the Earth is spinning under it, it doesn't matter what propels it as long as it's moving. The assumption is they're two separate objects moving separately. So when you're flying a plane, suddenly the plane is not moving separately than the object it's not connected to. But when it's a bullet, it doesn't matter. Let's say you created a plane that shot like a bullet. Doesn't matter what kind of propulsion. If you invented a plane that was more like a missile, like a giant gun, and you shot that plane like a bullet, and then you're just steering it. You're just using the explosion. It's going to take you as far as it takes you. Let's say it's some magnificent engineering, something Don Pettit would, cheer for. It doesn't matter, because that's not even the argument. The argument is, does something flying through the air at all, regardless of propulsion, what kind is moving it, does that thing account for an object called the Earth moving beneath it? If you do have to account for a bullet, then you have to account for other things flying through the air. I mean, you can't just say, oh yeah, the principle of physics works for this one object, but not for this other object. That's insanity. That's for insane people. You should be able to jump and move depending on where. You should be able to do a lot of things. I mean, the ridiculousness of that is so particular because of how fast a bullet moves. You'd think that something moving actually way faster wouldn't be affected. It's just traveling further at a quicker rate. It's like, oh, we don't feel the spin, but you have to account for the movement when you shoot something that's going like, I don't even know how fast. 69 saw fake moon landing on TV. We knew the size of the capsule as astronauts climbed out in the ocean later. The size of the moon buggy did not make sense. Oh no, you can't just tuck away some sort of Lego moon buggy. When you're going to the moon and, the alleged danger and all the things to take concern of, you don't go, let's do donut. Let's get that up there and do donuts. You're like, no, let's get that up there and be very cautious about the expense and very cautious about the safety and the preservation of not only your spacesuit, but the preservation of the vehicle that costs millions of dollars. Oh yeah, by the way, we just spent millions of dollars developing this stuff. Could you guys, when you get up there, let's say the first time you guys run around in your spacesuits that are untested actually in those conditions, and just run around and fall down and throw rocks and jump up and down and, do some things that might tear your suit up. Extra stuff that's unnecessary. Because the next few times we're going to send you up with a moon buggy that we're going to somehow fit in the LEM. And then we're going to unpack it. You're going to fold it out like a picnic table, and then you're going to start that buggy up. And then you're going to do donuts, and we want rooster tails because that's essential in preserving the $1 million space buggy. Okay. Sean just says his stuff and then he leaves. It's like he's a projector. Cowards run away, and he always tells me I'm running away. Meanwhile, I watch his streams and I sit there and comment. Then he blocks me. Bipolar challenge is hilarious. It's insane. Yeah. Well, even if you trained a sniper to be like, account for the spin right now. It's like, can you imagine you're taking cover and you got to find where the fire's coming from. And you're like, and you're like, I got him in my sights, but I have to account for the spin of the earth. And it's like, let's take two snipers, one is aiming along the spin of the earth and one's aiming at the same sniper against the spin of the earth. You know how funny that would be? You know, that concept? Two snipers try to kill each other, and they're both shooting against different variations of the constraint of the spin. One's like, I gotta account for it this way. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid. The reason I mentioned propulsion is that when an object is in fluid medium, you mean like air, you could look at any distance. You can look at any distance. The course correction in a plane argument for flat Earth is weak. Yeah, but we're not talking about course correction. I mean, if you say course correction given a bullet relative to a plane, but that's the thing. It's like, that's an entirely different inquiry. The inquiry isn't how you correct your target, a plane going this way or that way. It has propulsion, it can weave, it has its own flight, it has its own ability to move left or right, accelerate, decrease. So, I mean, it doesn't matter because, like I said, the argument isn't whether a plane is better at correcting its target, location or not. It's whether an object is separate from the object it's flying above. And if the object beneath it is moving, like here's the thing. It's really simple. If a flying object, any flying object, regardless of speed or its propulsion, is moving, and the object called Earth is spinning such that you have to account for that spin, that movement, the same would apply to any moving object in varying degrees. So it's like, just imagine the plane doesn't have steering or propulsion or braking. And you just, again, you created a bullet that was in the shape of a plane. And you're like, you just shot it the same way. It's like suddenly the same object, now that it doesn't have its own propulsion, it now has to account for the spin. So does a sniper pull out their folded manual? Yeah, I don't know what they do. Do they do some quick math? I mean, there's a guy next to him. I mean, I don't know. I don't know this is the thing. Appealing to the procedures and protocol, okay, is not an argument for whether something's true or not. Because we could make a list of protocol that is useless, stupid, bureaucratic, nonsensical, based on assumptions, does nothing. Appealing to the protocol of what people do is one of the most absurd arguments for whether something's true or valid or not. It's like, yeah, but they have the protocol for wearing a mask. It's like, clearly, if it wasn't true, they wouldn't be wearing a mask. The protocol is wear a mask, therefore it's true. I mean, we have protocols for these. Well, the protocol is change probably the rings, the O-rings, and seal off the cupola. Okay? Do basketball players account for shots? Yeah, any of it. And then they're like, well, no, they're at such close range that there's no real discerned difference in any rotation because they're so close together, so you really don't notice. Whereas a bullet is traveling so far that it's covering so much of the land that it must account for the spin. So the bullet gets to escape the atmosphere that holds, that argues that a plane and other things don't actually really, aren't separate. They're spinning with the Earth, but they're also moving within the spin of the Earth. So they're moving as one object, but inside at a smaller scale, they're moving They're slowly moving, but it's so small that you're not noticing the full spin. But a bullet, no. You know. The sniper licks his finger and holds, yeah, he's just like, where are we? And wouldn't that alter based on the current model? Isn't it not even, isn't it change at different places? They like land near the equator and they're like, okay, guys, get your parachutes ready. Snipers, did you change your scope for the more oblate circumference? I don't know. Just do what we said. Just kill the enemy. I don't care. I don't know why they put it in there. I have a question for those of you who are aware of what the Cavendish experiment is. Doesn't it seem obvious that if you do that experiment, that you would simply do the same exact one and just remove the second added masses? I mean, how come I don't see that on every video that's affirming the Cavendish experiment? I never see one where they go, oh, okay, just to be fair, before we assume cause here, let's remove the second masses, the buckets of metal or whatever it is. It's funny because, the end of my finger and the end of my wrist are the two balls, the weighted balls. And then they put other masses on like an X, and so when anything moves in any direction, it goes toward the thing that they placed, right? It'll always go toward something. Even if you placed it the opposite way, you'd be like, oh, it's going toward the other one. So it's always going, if the thing spins at all, as long as you have an object there, it'll be like, yeah, look, it's spinning toward the object. How about remove all of it? And if you get any spin, then they'll be like, yeah, but all the variables weren't considered. There's some other variables causing the spin of the balls. I don't know, the twisting of the wire, uneven crossbar, the drill isn't centered. There's weaker fibers on one end of the stick than the other. The only way to accurately do that non-scientific experiment is machine something so precise, near no margin of error, and have it on a swivel that's also machined and highly lubricated, Sean Hawking, if you know what I mean, and have no strings. You can't have a string, anything that can twist or bind or create any torque. And you'd have to have some sort of strong, near perfectly fabricated carbon fiber rod that's connected exactly at the end of the stick or the cross beam. You'd have to have a very minimal, close to minimal. Why isn't that done in a vacuum, by the way? Because we can't create an exact vacuum, but why isn't that done in a vacuum? It doesn't matter. He did it in 1789. He already proved it. Bullets need correction. Water spinning down the drain. I don't know. I have no idea. It would be impossible to isolate the cause to that. This is what science is. You can assume a bunch of stuff, but science, the only way to determine the difference between water going down one way or another is to actually isolate the thing that's causing that to happen, and then removing the thing to demonstrate that that is in fact the thing that's causing it. And that's what an independent variable is. You need to be able to manipulate the effect, produce it, remove it, produce it, remove it with some high level. Just observing it and then assuming something is the cause is not science. It's because of the angle of the drain. Yeah, I don't know enough about toilets. Dear Sean, it's a special kind of hell not being able to admit when anyone's wrong. Yeah, Sean, tell me. Again, if you'll probably watch this later. Tell me. How do you verify the angle to an object 323 light years away? Yeah, but it's lined up with my eye line. How could my eye be inaccurate? I'm looking at it. That's his argument. I'm looking at Polaris. How could my eye be inaccurate if I'm actually looking at it? You're like, no, you're using your eye to point through a tool that has some eyesight on it. And you're assuming that because you look through your eye through the thing, that means it's aiming toward the thing. So you need to account for the spin of the earth to shoot someone in the head with a sniper rifle, but you don't need to account for the same consequential variables when you're pointing at an item that you say is 323 light years away. What? By your own model, by the time you set up and you think you got an accurate reading from your eyeball to unknown distance, but let's say 323 light years away. By the time you even set up, your angle would necessarily already change. If you're going to say everything changes 69 miles per hour or 15 degrees, are you just really good at setting up your little tripod and perfectly lining up an angle? Like, angles are mathematics. I mean, mathematics, you can't just assume an angle. You can't just be like, yeah, it's kind of in that direction. Kind of. But according to me, I'm also moving. And so, I don't know. Let's just say, let me guess. You account for the movement while you're trying to measure. You account for the movement by assuming it's moving 15 degrees per hour. How do you verify the angle? You're like, well, we know we're moving 15 degrees per hour. So, the time it takes me to set up, by the time I take the measurement, I have to account for, whatever. Some arbitrary percent of 15, right? 3, 5, 2. So, according to your own model, you would need to account for the angle that you're taking. You would need to account for the actual rotation you're assuming that you're getting. So how does this not make sense? If something's rotating, the thing you're on is rotating, you're determining an angle. Forget the distance. I mean, that's only one obvious problem. If you're trying to prove that it's rotating, right? And you're trying to prove what shape it is, but you assume both of those things, you're going to need to take those into account in your measurements. But you see, the problem here is it's self-referential. It's circular. If I put a lead ball in my yard, how would How big would it have to be so I could jump up and start walking upside down? That's what I want to know. At what point is an object large enough that it suddenly defies everything we know about physics, second law of thermodynamics, etc.? How big does it need to be where you don't fall off it? Because the assumption is the bigger it gets, the more you're like an ant. And gravity is so strong at the surface that it can't keep you on another ball that you're standing on. So strong that it won't make you stick to some other object. But when it's at its weakest point, allegedly, at the highest altitude, closest to the adjacent vacuum, it's somehow strong enough to keep all expanding gases in place. You see, science, you see, gravity at the surface is at its strongest. That's why you fall off a ladder. You see, at its weakest point, it's able to hold in all of the oceans and the entire atmosphere. Okay. Can you isolate gravity and produce an experiment where it acts as a barrier that can keep any gases in place? You see, gravity's not a force, it's an acceleration, but it also acts like a wall, a physical wall. Okay, it's both of those? Well, no, we don't really know what gravity is, but we also know that it can act as a container, because that's science. So what is it? Well, it's bending of space-time. What? Wait. So gravity's the acceleration of 9.8 meters per second, but it's also the bending of space-time? Yeah. You see? No. Today with Julius. Thank you today with Julius. That's very generous of you. What's up, Jim Bob? Appreciate you. God bless. Thank you. But it's also something else. That's another thing Sean believes in. He thinks gravity's a force. Is that scientific, Sean? No, it's not. I love these scientismo. Yeah, it's my favorite topic. It's one of my favorite topics. According to their model, we're all upside down. Yeah, I'm still waiting for this advanced technology, you know. We did moon buggies in 1971 or some shit. You know, we went all these places. We landed on Mars. Look at the data that we're relaying from 53 million miles away. Yet, you can't show me one photograph, one high-level zoom photograph from alleged space of a building that's upside down. You can't do that? You can't zoom in with your fancy technology and show me a whole city that's floating in space, building upside down. People walking around. It should be very easy to do. It's not that easy, Jim Bob. They have to deal with the effects of gravity. So stupid. Gravity is a fantastic scientific blind spot. Just plastered around. Oh yeah, just plaster. And everything's based on this assumed R value. And assuming that gravity does all this stuff. Totally baseless. Oh, it's gravity does it. I was just watching some dude, what was it, like Marble Ball Earth? And the guy, he's like making fun of like Nathan Oakley or something. And they're talking about containers. You know, pressure requires a container. And then he goes, Nathan, and he's like a redneck. He's like, the only You want pressure without a container? Simple. All you need is one of these. He shows a picture of Earth, the blue marble, that NASA took in 1969. And then he says, you need one of these and you just add gravity. What? That's your argument? So the thing in question, the Earth, the thing in question, the atmosphere, gas sphere, the thing in question, container. Your refutation is that, oh, it's so simple. It's simple to refute that. I'll just present the thing that you're refuting. No, the question is, can you scientifically demonstrate that gravity can contain gas as a wall in place of a container, in place of a wall, physical, barrier, press? Can you show me gas pressing against gravity? Yeah, just look at the Earth, duh. No, that's what's in question. Just add gravity, yeah. I can't believe someone said that. I saw a video of a dude that found the Mars rover on Google Earth and a NASA truck. Oh yeah, no, that was in, they have several locations. One of the most well-known Mars landing locations is actually Devon Island in Canada. Look it up, Devon Island Mars Project. There's a couple of videos on YouTube you should look at right after this. I mean, it's legitimately Hollywood. This is what happened. They looked at Hollywood and they said, wow, you could actually produce very close to believable scenes inside massive studios. And then they were like, oh, you can do this for a lot of categories of things. And then people started learning that you can now even make maybe entire cities into little Disneyland, opening scenes for, I don't know, dark ops, some sort of, political prototyping, aka Parkland, the entire place. And so, yeah, they're going to buy up all these places, and they're going to do these things. And it's convincing to a lot of people. Anthony Gonzalez. Ben Shapiro, what do you say about flat Earth?
I mean, it's absolutely absurd. I mean, the fact that it's 2020, folks, and we are arguing, the shape of the Earth. I mean, that really shows, there's advantage to the internet, the era of all information, and there's a disadvantage. And I would say that lands on the latter side of advantages. And that is the thing, folks. We would be better off arguing with 17-year-old Marxists who don't have daddies. That we'd be better off having conversations about conversations. These are conversations that we need to be having. I mean, we'd be better off me sitting down with Sam Harris and getting down to the brass tacks of things. That's all, folks. I mean, take your vaccines, folks. I have 6. I'm up to 6 now.
By the way, I just figured out how to get Ben Shapiro on my my animation I'm working on. Got him to do the puke face. It's hilarious. It's just so funny to watch him go. I got him to turn all green and stuff. I'm not going to give away too much.
Facts and logic, folks. Vaccines and logic.
I mean, we are really in a special time where people actually think that an agency that has this unjustified monopoly on travel, being that travel would be now at the point of merely engineering, common known engineering. At this point, if everything NASA said was true, the level of travel would not be monopolized. It would not be this big event. It would just be normal. Be like going to like driving to Louisiana. But the fact that people think that anything can travel through an unknown medium that we look up at 53 million miles away and land on something we don't know the nature of. Yeah, but we do know. We shot a spectrometry thing at we gave it a colonoscopy. We saw it. And it's like, we know that, we know how much, atmosphere is there. Just listen to us. Don't you see the people cheering? Think about the cheering. Think about the cheering. Don't forget the yarmulke. Actually, no, I didn't. Actually, when he gets sick, his yarmulke goes up in the air. It's hilarious. Seen someone wear a NASA shirt? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why information doesn't necessarily matter. It only matters to people who are willing to like use it and look at it and be like, oh, that might change how I look at stuff if that's true. But people who are already at the NASA backpack wearing, lunch pail carrying, hat wearing, whatever, tattoo, tramp stamp, NASA, it's like people who have made their own masks. They made a custom mask with their grandma. They've already embedded, it's like imprinting, with children or even with animals. You made an imprint of trust with another piece of information that then is a part of your identity. And so the imprint you make, if it's a lie, it's very difficult, most times impossible to remove the imprint because you're killing a part of yourself. It's like breaking up. That's why people who are, in the truther movement, who see these things, why it's so upsetting and somewhat sad, somewhat demoralizing, but always somewhat feels like a breakup. And you know what a breakup feels like? It's like a death, but your heart is partially broken. Your mind is partially split. And, but what happens when your mind is split and your heart is open, both are open. And that's always the fun part, is that you're raw. Something wasn't true. It's humbling. It's humility. And so there's this new vitality because you realize, for many, at least, this is where it matters to realize. People go, what does it matter what NASA's lying about? Here's why it matters. Because NASA has a monopoly on cosmology, and cosmology informs your faith and your worldview and your view of existence and whether or not you're just a speck of dust. You're a speck of stardust. Life is meaningless. Except when I'm signing all my books and doing all my live performance. You're not a meaningless speck of carbons that came together through some bacterial sperm explosion, growth from a fishtail. You were made with purpose. There's a creator. He gave you tools that are immaterial, by the way, to discern truth, which is also immaterial. The meaning of your life is not accidental, floating around in a vacuum through space at 66,600 miles per hour. And if you're going to be a materialist and be indoctrinated by NASA's cosmology, you will come to the conclusion that it's all meaningless. We're just floating around. There's no real purpose. And if you come out of that, you'll have a vulnerability to other things that are bullshit too. Because once you start grasping that there is purpose and meaning, then you'll start grabbing toward a lot of things. Esoteric shit, mysticism, Eastern philosophy, meditation stuff, whatever it is. Alan Watts. You'll crave, because you do crave. You crave to know the truth. But you don't just crave to know the truth. You crave to love the truth. Why? Because the truth is an absolute concept, and concepts come from minds. And you know the mind who created absolute truth created you in love. And because of that, to know the truth is to know your creator. That's why the truth is a who, not a what. That's why morality is a who. Who is the basis of morality, not what. What is? Well, Sam Harrison, there's no other thing that could be the basis of morality other than optimize well-being of sentient creatures and the minimization of suffering. No, that's a what. Morality must be based in the standard of a being that represents the epitome, the absolute standard of love, compassion, goodness, gracefulness, forgiveness, sacrifice, long-suffering. Joe Gay, and you're so right, Jim Bob. My life turned on a dime when I realized we didn't go to the moon. Yeah, it's a really good first popper. It's like, at least it's the most relevant, most recent. You can go further back and be like, what was World War II? But it's almost like every generation has their 9/11, you know? You know? You ever watch Smarter Every Day? I don't know. It doesn't sound familiar, but I've watched a lot of stuff on YouTube. I mean, a lot, guys. Sean Pettit. Yeah, if that Sean guy was more known, I would definitely animate him. I mean, he'd be happy. Poor guy's left out of both sides, you know? It's because he's too angry. You don't have to be angry, Sean. Nobody hates you. You don't have to call people a bunch of names. You know? Love does not require a mind. I am that am precedes any individual mind. No, love requires a basis for what is love. And it's also a self-refuting statement, because you're making a claim that requires a mind. So you couldn't know the statement about not needing a mind without you having a mind. The truth of the matter is, the human mind isn't the mind. We are particulars that are expressions and creations of the absolute mind, God's mind. We're loaned the body, we're loaned the brain, we're loaned his energies, logic, reasoning, wisdom, knowledge, science, math, language, meaning, information. They're on loan. And he gave them to us to know him, not to know stuff. But if we're going to know stuff, even knowing the stuff will still point to him. And it's the humility it takes to understand that you didn't create or discover, we didn't make this. Oh, the human mind. Look, we generate love. We generate the truth. We generate morality. We manufacture morality. I fisted an owl today. I buried its guts and alchemized the trauma. And I injected that trauma like a jab. I dropped a log on you while you were sleeping. Your torment is our growth. Oh, we agree. I was saying that love does not depend on the... Yeah, it can't be. Sorry. I read that all wrong. I thought you were all going all solipsistic on me. I have a high radar for solipsism. There's a place for log dropping. Smarter every day is a rocket scientist. Is he, though? That's the thing, is a lot of rocket scientists isn't people actually making things. It's just doing astrophysics, math, you know, taking known laws and kind of just extrapolating and whatnot. But I don't believe any of those people until they show me like anything that resembles a vacuum, the alleged vacuum of 10 to the negative 17 torr, and show me something flying freely through it with combustion and being able to steer, and not in a 1 by 1 foot vacuum chamber. All you famous science YouTubers. Well, look, we put a balloon in the chamber and we let the balloon go, and look, the balloon propels itself and it propels itself through the vacuum. No, you just filled up the vacuum with air, dude. It was hilarious watching you show the Owlman flaws. Yeah, Owlman doesn't like it. Also, if he was big enough, I would animate him. I think him sitting in the chair with Jordan Peterson might be a little... Maybe I'll throw that in as an Easter egg. Anyway, I gotta wrap this up. Prana, logs of prana. I touch your prana. I rub my prana on your prana. The luminaries guide us through the land. The land tells us what Saturn told me. I whispered death in your ear, and you alchemized it while you sleep. I'm hypnotizing my fan base with my cadence. Those who understand this technology are no longer welcome in the chat. This is why I don't want you to listen to my streams at 1.5 speed, because I can't hold you in a suggestive state and finger your ear. Anyway, on that note, thanks for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You're all very generous, loving, beastly, human, and awesome. And Sean Hawken, you're welcome anytime to come back. And before we take your little bipolar challenge, you tell us how you verify the angle to an object that's 323 light years away. We have verified the angle. Simply take the zenith angle, point it at the sun, and point your eye and some little tool at a star that is 323 light years away. Then go around demanding people correct you, even though your complete bipolar challenges starts from an assumption that's unverified. All right, you guys. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.